L'Amour Fan by David Smith. Music by Cristina Sergi. The Californios, Part 12. Leaving Kern River after a week's vacation, the Jones family are on their way home. It's a few hours' drive from Kern River to Granada Hills, California. It had been a very special time for them as a family. They're driving along the 178 highway towards Bakersfield and the 99 South. Kevin is driving a rented van and his wife Maggie is in the seat next to him. Their twin girls and son are in the back seats. Their camping gear is packed all around them in every available space. Junior, their 7-year-old son, is asleep in his seat. The 9-year-old twins Stacy and Trudy had just handed 2 Louis L'Amour books to Maggie, requesting she start reading the Californios out loud. This trip had brought the 4 of them to Louis L'Amour, the Western writer. His books were tied to Kevin's father as well as to Maggie's father and stepfather. It had worked out that Kevin and Maggie took turns reading L'Amour's Mojave Crossing out loud. The twins had also become involved. They were continuing with 2 borrowed books from a mechanic in Kernville. They had asked him to recommend one that contained their local history in the San Fernando Valley. They had read Mojave Crossing over the last few days and enjoyed reading about their own area, since some of the story took place in Cahuenga Pass and Los Angeles. Michael had fixed their van in his garage and had inadvertently put Kevin on L'Amour's Western book trail. Maggie was reading the synopsis on both books. The Californios takes place on a ranch in Malibu, she says, in early California. We know where Malibu is, Trudy says from the back seat. Michael said the 1840s, Kevin says, then asks, what about the other one? They both sound good, Maggie announced. We might finish the Californios by the time we get home. Then we can see what my mother has. I'll bet she has all of his books, or at least most of them. The other one is about a young kid going with his father out to Los Angeles, Maggie tells Kevin. It's very long, but sounds good. When Kevin had come back to their campsite on the Kern River earlier in the week, after getting the van repaired, he'd brought back the Mojave Crossing book. Kevin didn't read much for pleasure. Plus, he was avoiding reading these books due to the emotional feelings both he and Maggie shared. Both of their fathers and Maggie's stepfather had read many of L'Amour's Western books. All 3 men had passed away under different circumstances. In reading the books, many memories were coming back to them. When the twins got involved, it was very special, and it gave them conversations which would help the twins remember their grandfathers, since they had never met them. They spent a lot of time with their grandmothers and had heard plenty of stories. Okay, Maggie announces. Are you ready? We are, both twins shout from the back. Maggie turns sideways in her seat to be sure the twins can hear her. Junior is still sound asleep. Maggie opens the book to page 9 and begins reading. The story starts with Eileen Mulkerin. She's on the porch of her ranch house in Malibu, California in 1844. Her Mexican-Irish husband had received their land grant from the President of Mexico for 20 years of service, with the understanding they would move to the little pueblo of Los Angeles. At that time it was a frontier, with ships bringing supplies from Mexico intermittently. It wasn't a popular destination. Her husband Jaime was dead. She was with her son Michael, who was a monk. Money was due on a loan, and the bad guys, always has to be bad guys, were on their way to collect. Eileen and Michael spoke of her other son, Sean, who was expected back from a trip to Acapulco in his ship Lady Luck, where he'd sold a variety of cattle hides, otter, and seal skins. She was speaking to Michael of gold Jaime had been able to get from somewhere in the desert, but no one knew where it was. The bad guys came and went with the threat of her moving out, or they would move her. In 1844, Governor Mitchell Torina was in power, and his collection of what he called soldiers were stealing from the peons in Los Angeles and from the small farms in the surrounding areas. He would be of no help to her. Kevin is driving through miles and miles of farmland in this part of the San Joaquin Valley. The twins' attention is drawn back and forth from looking out the window and listening to their mother read. They're passing through grapevines, various nut trees, and other citrus trees, fruits, and vegetables. Maggie finishes chapter 1, but has to readjust her body from sitting in that position before she can continue. She turns around, leans forward and stretches a few times. Crack go a couple of bones. Crack goes her neck. A few more stretches and Maggie resumes her position. Then Junior wakes up and has to go to the bathroom. From past experience, Kevin knows he needs to pull over. Within 2 minutes, Kevin turns down a dirt road and has taken Junior out of his side of the van. This area happens to be grapevines, but all trimmed back. This doesn't bother Junior, and in another 2 minutes he's climbing back into the van. "Are we almost home?" he asks. "No, not yet," Trudy tells him, as she watches him seatbelt himself back in. Kevin is watching her in the mirror. She looks up and makes eye contact. "Okay, Dad, he's ready." Kevin turns the van around again and gets back on the highway. "Are you okay, Junior?" Maggie asks. "Yeah," Junior answers, "just sleepy." They all know he'll go back to sleep. He almost always sleeps when they're driving. "Should I continue with Chapter 2, Maggie asks. Both girls answer yes. Kevin and Maggie smile at each other and Maggie starts reading Chapter 2. Sean Malquerin, Eileen's other son, is anchored in the bay in Acapulco, Mexico on a ship, the Lady Luck. It's late at night. He's disappointed with the transactions he's made with his cattle hides and other furs he had to sell. He didn't get as much money as he'd hoped for. He hears a commotion on shore. The lights come on and he sees a woman run out of a building, strip off her dress and dive into the water. She swims out to his ship and he lowers the ladder for her. He has to take her away or do a lot of explaining to authorities. He quickly sets sail for California. "The Wootons is coming up," Kevin announces. "Do you want to stop?" "Yes," the twins speak up. Even Junior becomes alert. A few minutes later, Kevin's pulling into the parking lot where there are a dozen other cars and more than a dozen people walking around. Some are eating oranges, grapes, and other fruit. There were several fruit stands along the highway, but they always stopped at the Wootons and filled the coolers with a variety of fruit and vegetables. They bought some for themselves and some to share with the grandmothers. Junior picked out a very large watermelon but couldn't lift it. Kevin saw him struggling and picked it up for him. Stacy and Trudy began gathering cherry and beefsteak tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, bell peppers, and pickled olives. Maggie went straight to the counter to ask for help. Her friend Joyce was working at the cash register. Joyce's family operated the stand. Most of the produce was from their farm, but several of the neighbors also contributed and worked at the stand. Since Maggie had been going to Kern River for years, she and Joyce had become friends. Several people were in line, but when Joyce spotted Maggie, she had one of her workers take over. "Hi, Maggie," she said. "How are you?" "Hi, Joyce," Maggie responded. "How are you doing?" Greeting Maggie, they hugged and began discussing their families. Joyce was a little older and had 5 children and 2 grandchildren. "How many kids do you have with you today?" Maggie asked. "Just Carl and the grandkids," Joyce answered. "He's out back unloading a truck." "You sure look busy," Maggie said. "Then again, it seems like you're always busy." "Yeah," Joyce agreed, "especially on the weekends." After a few more minutes of discussing the health of their children, parents, in-laws, and husbands, the twins walked up. "We're ready," Stacy announced. "Hi, girls," Joyce said. "Come and give me a hug." "They do." "You girls are getting too big," and they all laughed. The same thing was said every time they saw each other. Kevin also walked up with the watermelon and Junior. "There's my handsome man," Joyce said. "Come here, sweetie." And Junior went and got his hug. Joyce also hugged Kevin and exchanged the usual "how are you" back and forth. "Go make some room in the van for our groceries," Kevin told the kids. "I'll be right there." Stacy, Trudy, and Junior walk out to the van. Junior walked to the side of the building where the ice was kept and got a block. The twins had the coolers on the ground, and Junior placed a block of ice in the largest cooler. They could put the items needing the refrigeration in one cooler and the other groceries in the second cooler. Kevin came with a box full of groceries and put it on the ground. The girls put the large cooler in the van and filled it with grapes, pickled olives, and Junior's watermelon. They topped it off with bell peppers and cucumbers. That emptied the first box. The second cooler was put on top, and Kevin came with another large box. Most of it was put into the second cooler. He left and returned with the third box. They piled the rest of the second box's contents into it and were done. They were able to repack some of the camping gear so that everything fit. This was the same routine every trip. They returned to Joyce and Maggie, who were sitting at one of the dozen picnic tables where other people were also eating. "Would you like a glass of iced tea?" Joyce offered. Her and Maggie already had theirs. Joyce poured 4 more glasses full from a pitcher, then got up to refill the pitcher. They all had second glasses. The picnic tables were under a large tree where there was plenty of shade. Joyce's son Carl came around the building with 2 little boys, 2 and 3 years old. The twins knew them from previous visits since they were babies, and each twin grabbed one and put them in their laps. They didn't mind and loved the attention. Everyone laughed. "I'm going to get the camera," Maggie said, and went to the van for it. Kevin shook hands with Carl. "Where's your dad?" Kevin asked. "He's at the farm," Carl answered. "Some kids were out joyriding last night and lost control of the truck. They crashed into our pistachio trees and took out some of the irrigation pipe. He and my brother Henry are repairing it." "How big a section?" Kevin asked. "Over 60 feet of pipe," Carl answered. "When they went off the road, the kid forgot to take his foot off of the gas pedal. He caused a lot of damage to his father's truck. He was just 16 and got his license yesterday. It looks like we lost a few trees as well." "Sounds like a big job," Kevin said. "Yeah, my dad isn't very happy about it," Carl replied. "No, I guess not," Kevin said. Maggie returned with the camera, and they took about a dozen pictures of them all. They sat and talked for another half hour, then decided they better go. Everyone hugged goodbye, visited the bathroom, and were on the road again. The end of L'Amour Fan, Part 12.